So beginning your practice towards the back half of your mat or your space in a comfortably tall seat, Sukhasana or Siddhasana. Feel free to sit on a blanket if that makes it easier, so you find the natural curves of the spine, the low back, and the back of the neck having their natural inwards curves. Feeling the top of your head being drawn up towards the sky, shoulders then releasing down, and connecting your attention inwards. So either close your eyes or take your gaze towards the ground so that you can tune into your ears and your breath as you hear it coming in and out through your nose, but the sound apparent in the throat as you narrow your throat for Ujjayi Pranayama. Listening carefully to the quality of the breath. Is it any different on the inhale than on the exhale? Can you feel any difference in the pacing of it? Does one side of your breath feel longer than the other? And also noticing the felt sensation of the body, where you expand as you inhale and where you soften how you release as you exhale. And using that quality of expansion of bringing yourself present on the inhale and releasing whatever you need to let go of on the exhale. Whatever may have come before, whatever you think might come next, so that you're more present and available with the next in-breath. Feeling how the breath moves around the spine, but without disturbing the lift and the natural curves of the spine. Bring your palms together at your heart, your thumbs connected in towards your sternum, using that connection to lift the sternum up, to open the bottom of the lungs and the ribs, making your lower lung region more available for the next breath. And with the Adi mantra, we're tuning into the wisdom within and without. So in the next couple of breaths, determining, feeling into what that means for you, to tune into your inner teacher, your inner wisdom, and to tune into the wisdom or the guidance of the bigger picture, however you understand that. And then breathing in for the first of three. As you inhale, lift your arms up overhead. As you exhale, stretch them back behind you and take a couple more big circles, circulating your breath through your body as you circle your arms around your body, letting your eyes open if they were closed. Using the inhale to lift up tall and the exhale to stretch back and shrug off anything on your shoulders that isn't needed. And this next time that you release your arms down, we're going to come up onto our feet and start the practice standing. So bringing yourself upright towards the back edge of your mat and being sure you have room to bring your hands out to the sides, back behind you, and up overhead. So feel free to move around so you don't hit anything. We're going to come back to level 1 where we learned breath of joy. So find your feet are parallel underneath you, about front hip width apart, whatever feels balanced. Soften your knees and see that they align over your middle toes when they bend. Let your arms rest by your sides, and with your first inhale, first sniff, bring your arms up in front about shoulder level. Next sniff, bring your arms out to the sides about shoulder level. Last sniff in, bring your arms all the way overhead, and then exhale and fold over. Ha! Keep going, bending your knees with each part of the breath. Breathing in 3 sniffs like you're filling yourself in 3 parts, and then emptying out with that strong sound, drawing the belly back, ha, to make the sound, to empty the lungs completely. Finding where the whole body is moving, jaw relaxed. And now that you have the rhythm and you have the breath, add in the joy part. So let yourself lighten up into the movement. As you lift your arms up, inhale, stretch your arms overhead, and then exhale, take your arms back behind you, exhaling through your mouth. Inhale through your nose as you lift your arms up in front, exhale through your mouth as you stretch your arms long and back behind you. And pacing the arms to the breath, so finding one steady circular motion with your arms and with your breath, listening to the sound, particularly on the exhale. So you're figuring out how to pace the breath so it doesn't all rush in or rush out at the very start of the inhale or exhale. Taking just a couple more big circles, feeling how on the inhale you lift your whole body, not just your arms, so growing up through your waist and your legs and keeping that height as you exhale and reach back behind you. And this next time that you release your arms down, we're going to do another ha breath, monkey pulse. So make fists with your hands, inhale at center, and then exhale and pull one fist up towards your underarm, elbow towards the sky. Ha! Let the inhale happen in between, going side to side. Ha! 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 Opening up your side body, pulling your fist up like you're zipping up your side ribs. One more on each side. And then come back to center, release your hands, and bring your attention down into your feet. So we're going to work with Tadasana, mountain pose. Look to see that your feet are parallel to each other and about a fist width apart, so they're not too wide. And then lift all of your 10 toes off the ground, feeling the balls of your feet and the heels of your feet more firmly planted as the arches lift in between. And feeling a fairly even connection from the big toe ball through to the little toe ball, to the inner heel and the outer heel on each foot. So your 4 corners of each foot. And then bring one hand to your belly and one hand to your low back and draw your belly in and up so you feel the support and length in your low back. And then release your arms down, but keep the awareness in your core. So see if you can feel that tuck of the low belly to lengthen and support the low back without losing your breath. So how do you breathe when you have your abdominal muscles engaged? Stretch your fingers down, your palms facing the sides of your thighs, so you feel your shoulder blades are on your back and your shoulders are broad. A lot of space around your neck. And tune into your breath, so practicing that Ujjayi pranayama, that ocean-sounding breath, and visualizing that the breath comes from the feet, as though you're suctioning the inhale out of the earth, drawing it up through your arches, through your legs, through your spine, and then exhaling and stretching it out and up through the top of your head, so you grow taller with each breath. And the next time that you inhale, lift your arms up in front and bring them, if possible, in line with your ears. If your shoulders are tight, you might have to take your arms wider so that your shoulders don't creep up around your neck. So feel you still have all that space around your neck. Your arms are either parallel to each other, or if your shoulders are tight, they're more in a V shape. Reach long through your elbows and your fingers, and then release down broad through your shoulders at the same time. One of the things we discover in yoga is the ability to move in 2 opposite directions at once without falling apart. So taking a couple more breaths here with the visualization we had before of inhaling and coming up through the feet, the legs, the spine, exhaling out through the top of the head and the arms. So holding extended mountain, Utthita Tadasana. It may help you here, if you feel balanced, to close your eyes so that you can visualize the breath in the body and that image of the breath coming up from the ground. So you feel the connection, the broad mountain base in your feet, and rising up to the peak, to the top of your head and your fingers, without disintegrating, without your shoulders coming off your back, without your tail pointing back. So you're feeling the length in your low back and the strength of the core. And simply standing with your arms overhead and visualizing the breath and connecting to the breath in the body. Notice how you feel. If anything's changed in terms of your relationship to the ground, the relationship to your breath, and how your arms feel. The next time that you exhale, turn your palms out and take your arms out slowly, like you're moving your arms through something heavier than air, so maybe water or honey. So there's almost a sense of resistance, keeping the shoulders broad on the back, still continuing to lift up through your legs and your spine, and reach out long through your arms, noticing how your hands and shoulders feel. And when you release your arms down, let your toes relax. Close your eyes if they're not already closed, and feel where your balance is on your feet. Notice if your arches tend to collapse when your toes aren't lifted, or if you tend to favor one foot or the other. And then with your eyes still closed, favor the left foot. Shift your weight over onto your left foot and see if you can feel that. Feel that your toes spread out from each other. So there's little gaps between your toes, and that you can lift your inner arch up and move that lift up through your inner thigh and continue that lift up through the center of your body, just like when you're on both feet. And once you find your weight more fully on your left foot, start to let your right foot hover. And at this point, you may need to open your eyes to anchor yourself in space. So when you find that your weight is fully taken onto the left foot and you're lifting out of that foot, extend your right leg long in front, toes pointing towards the front edge of the mat, and take some big circles through your foot at your ankle joint, keeping your knees steady, your legs steady. Your arms may need to come out to the sides to help you balance as you focus on opening the right ankle and breathing into it. Change the direction of your circles, looking for big circles that you're carving out in space with your toes without moving the leg. And then point and flex your foot so your toes point straight in front of your ankle, your knee, and your front hip, as opposed to off to the right. Drawing back, feeling how the movement of the foot at the end of the leg affects the whole leg, starts to move up into the leg muscles. And the next time that you point your foot, draw your toes back like you have a high heel on, and plant the ball of your foot and your toes down. Shift your weight forward so that you come up onto the ball and toes of both feet, as though you have high heels on. Keep a little bit of space left to right and feel how much space you need front to back so that your heels can be the same lift off the ground. Grow up really tall. Lift your heels up above the balls of your feet so your calves wake up. And as you find your height, square your hips forward so your front hips are like headlights pointing off the front edge of the mat. Use your next exhale to bend your knees and bring yourself closer to the ground, but without dropping your heels. Use your inhale to come back up, to lift up tall, as though you're being drawn up through the top of your head, and then exhale and bend your knees. So the slower you move with this, the slower your breath. So the greater control you're gaining over your breathing, your internal environment. But also you're creating more strength and aptitude for balancing. So take your time with this. Inhale to come up, and exhale to come down. Feeling how you're strengthening your feet and your calves. And even though you're coming down towards the ground with the exhale, keep that sense of being lifted up towards the sky at the same time. So then you're not collapsing. It's much easier to lift up when you're already lifted up. The next time that you come down to your lowest point, pause there, hold the lowest point, but don't hold your breath. And see if you can lift within it. Lift your heels up, right up above the balls of your feet. Lift up through your low belly. Lift up through your sternum and the back of your head, feeling and breathing into the strength your legs are coming into. And use your next inhale to lift all the way back up. As you come up tall, shift your weight back onto your left foot again, and as you bring your left foot down, look to see that the middle of your foot is parallel to the side edge of the mat, because the heel tends to want to turn into the midline. And when you find that, where your foot is aligned and your weight's fully on your left foot, draw your right knee up and hold onto your shin or your knee or your thigh with your hands. And just draw up to the point where your left knee doesn't bend. So if you think of pushing the ground away with your left heel, anchoring fully down through the foot and drawing up through the left thigh muscle, that'll make it easier to balance than if you bend the knee. And it also stabilizes the knee without locking it back. Then as you hold on to your bent right knee and start to slowly draw it up towards you, notice the tug zone, the point where it starts to tug on the standing leg and pulls it into a bend. So just go to the point where it doesn't. Focus your eyes on a point to help your balance, to anchor you in space, and then keeping your right knee in your right hand, take your right knee out to the right and your left arm out to the left, and just go to the point in opening to the right that your left knee doesn't follow you. So again, feel for that tug zone. Where does the standing leg, knee, swerve towards the midline? Keep it aligned over the left middle toes instead. And then bringing yourself back to center, release your right foot down as gracefully as you can. Come back into Tadasana, mountain pose. So check that your toes line up. Your feet are parallel to each other and to the side edges of your mat. And then release your toes out wide from each other and release your arms down long by your sides. If you feel balanced, close your eyes. If you need a little more stability, take your gaze down towards the ground, but lift up through your legs and through your spine and through the top of your head and reconnect to your breath. It's really easy in balancing when we're holding ourselves up off the ground to hold the breath. So if that happened, connect to your breathing again, let it flow. With your eyes closed, shift your weight over to your right foot now and feel that change. Feel what happens in your body from the foot all the way up through the head when you take the weight out of the left foot. So notice if you sink into the outer right hip. Keep the central lift that we were playing with in mountain pose before of inner arch, inner thigh, spine, top of head. And when you have that, take your left foot off the ground, hover it, let your eyes open, look at a point ahead of you to help anchor as you take your left leg out in front, push the ground away with your right foot so you don't sink, and then circle your left foot at the end of a long leg. Feel free to take your arms out if they need to help you balance, but keep your jaw relaxed and your breath flowing. Change the direction of your foot if you haven't already. And then start pointing and flexing your foot. If you're able to look down at your foot without losing your balance, see that all of the bones are in line. So middle of your toes, ankle, knee, front hip, as you point forward and then draw back. And feeling the interplay of the front and back of the leg muscles. Then coming into seat of Isis, so your high heels. Bring the ball of your left foot down, giving yourself enough space left to right that you're not on a tightrope. It makes it harder to balance when you are. So a little bit of space left to right, and however much space front to back that you can feel you're wearing the same pair of heels. Your heels are lifted above the balls of your feet, the same height. And when you get that, draw up through your whole body. Keep the sense of lifting up as you bend your knees on the exhale, as though you're resisting coming down. Keep lifting up. The slower you can keep this motion, the more you can feel all of those little subtle changes, the dance that happens with balancing and with strengthening. So moving with your slow breath, using your inhale to lift up and your exhale to release down, keeping the ocean sound. Noticing the point when you get closer to the ground where the heels want to drop and countering that by lifting the heels higher. And the next time that you get to your lowest point, pause, breathe within it, and add that lift in the heels. Lift up through the belly, lift up through your skull. So everything's lifted up, even though you're closer to the ground. Breathing steadily. Use your next inhale, follow your breath, to lift up. As you exhale, shift your weight back onto your right foot. checking that the middle of your foot's aligned with the side edge of your mat, so your middle toes are pointing straight ahead, and drawing your weight up through your right leg. Once you feel that you're standing on your right foot, hold on to your left knee as you draw it up towards you, and just bringing it up to the point that your right knee doesn't bend. So think of pushing the ground away with your right heel. So you're rebounding up, pressing down through your foot to draw up through your right thigh, taking the bend out of your knee, but also not locking it, using the muscles to lift it up. And when you feel that the left knee coming up towards your body isn't pulling the right knee into a bend, breathe. And then open your left knee to the left as you take your right arm to the right to help you counterbalance. See if you can feel within all that's going on, all that balancing and breathing, that your right knee is staying aligned over your toes. It'll tend to want to follow your left knee to the left, so actively lift up on your right thigh muscle to keep the knee safe and squared to the front. Give that one more inhale, opening out crosswise. And then exhale, come back to center and release your left foot, coming back to Tadasana, mountain pose. As you bring your feet underneath you, if you're not already at the back edge of the mat, bring your heels all the way to the back edge of the mat. Release your arms down by your sides, soften your knees, and check that your knees track out over your middle toes when you bend them, so your feet are parallel under front hips. Once you've set your feet, your knees are still bent, then close your eyes. As you lift your head up, close your eyes. And if you've had trouble closing your eyes so far, I invite you to play here with closing your eyes fully, so that you can bring your head, your mind, down into your feet and really feel your feet on the ground. Listen to your breath. With your eyes closed, you have greater access to your ears, so listen to the sound quality of your breath. Let any tension release from the body that isn't needed to hold you up tall. And the next time that you exhale, bend your knees a little bit more, get a little closer to the ground so you can feel the weight dropping down through your heels a little bit more deeply. And keeping your knees slightly bent and your eyes closed, shift your weight to your left foot. Let your right foot just hover above the ground, and then if you really need more support, you can slide it along the floor, but if you can, step it forward slowly and bring the right heel down first. Then roll through the sole of the foot, from the heel into the ball of the foot, feeling how when you bring the right foot down, the left foot lifts behind. As one foot takes weight, the other foot gives way. Taking a slow walk from here, walking the plank, is what I call this. So notice your tendency to open your eyes, trust your feet, get your head down into your feet and feel them on the ground. And see if you can find one steady motion, like you're moving through something denser than air. So if you notice that when you pick the back foot up, it goes quickly forwards, see if you can slow it down so everything is one pace. Again, like you're moving through water. And really feeling with your feet, the soles of your feet on the mat, the texture. So then you'll know when you get to the front edge of the mat, or if you walk off the side, you'll feel the texture change. You can trust your feet. When you get to the front and you feel that, without opening your eyes, reset your feet underneath you so you're in mountain pose again. Feel that with your feet, and then open your eyes and look and see where you are on the mat and how your feet are, if you need to make any changes. So you get a sense of which way you swerve, and also how your feet feel when it feels like they're aligned, how they actually are when you open your eyes and you see them. So coming into standing yoga mudra, lift your toes, lift up through your arches, lift the muscles of the front thighs, lift your low belly to support your low back, bring your hands interlaced behind your back, palms facing each other, and activate the muscles in the upper back to open the upper chest. Lead out with your upper chest as you exhale so that you're pivoting at your hips. If you're feeling fear in the low back or upper hamstrings, then bend your knees, but find as much length in the legs as you can breathe into and feel safe. Visualize, just like you were doing with Tadasana, mountain pose, of breathing up the legs, and then as you exhale, breathe from the hips down the spine, through the head, so you let your head drop towards your toes. Look down. See that your 10 toes are lifted, both arches are lifted. You have an even sense of lift on your inner and outer ankles. And then lifting up through your kneecaps, your thigh muscles. So the more you activate the front of the thighs, the more reciprocal stretch you find in the back of the thighs. See if you can get a sense of your sits bones under your butt cheeks and your tailbone tilting up away from your heels, up towards the sky. And breathing from the heels up on the inhale to your hips, and from your hips down through your spine on the exhale. So if you want to deepen this, take your arms farther away from your back as though you're reaching them off the front edge of the mat. Use your exhale to release your spine, release your head into the pull of gravity. And the next time that you exhale, release your arms, unlace your fingers, release your toes back down to the ground, bend your knees, transition your hands down and your feet back towards the back edge of the mat. Come down into child pose, balasana. Find where you're comfortable in this posture. Having done this a few times over the weeks, you've probably now found your groove for it. Where do your knees need to be? Where does your head rest easily? Use your hands to help press your hips back, lengthen your low back, and then you might want to rest your hands under your head or back by your feet. Follow your breath. Allow your next inhale to uncurl you. Use that expansion, that levitation to bring yourself up to kneeling. Release your hands from your heart down to the ground and step your right foot forward. You might have to swing it out to the side. Bring your ankle by your right hand, and then curl your left toes under and lift your left leg, coming into high lunge. Take up a lot of space on the mat, reaching your left heel back and lifting your back thigh up to take the bend out of your left knee. Keep some space left to right so you're not on a tightrope. And then feeling for what kind of space do you need front to back, so that when you bend your right knee, it's over your ankle and your hips are about level with your right knee. If you tend to have low arches, and also to help stabilize the front knee, lift your right toes and press the outer edge of that foot into the ground. Give it another breath or two to find how much your legs and core are holding you up so that your arms and shoulders don't have to. If you need more support today, make this a low lunge as we add the wings in. You might need to bring your back knee down if that's where you are today. Bring your right fingertips or palm down to the ground or onto a block, wherever it sets when your upper arm and lower leg are aligned as one unit. Press your right knee into your arm and press back with your arm. Then bring your left hand onto your left ribs and feel your breath in your ribs. Expand your rib cage into your hand. And as you inhale and you open your ribs up away from your right leg, if you want, you can extend your left arm up. Notice, like we did in the standing balance in the last round of practice, how the opening on one side tends to pull the other side. So as you open your left ribs, keep your right knee pressed into your arm. Push back with your arm so your knee stays aligned over your ankle, and then you have a foundation to leverage your twist out of. Feeling the long line from your head, top of your head, to your back heel, and then another long line between your hands. So if you have a lot of weight in your right shoulder, push the ground away with your right hand and open up some space within your right shoulder joint. If your left arm is kinked, if your wrist is pulled back, lengthen through the back of the wrist. Reconnect the shoulder to your back so the opening is from your ribs instead of your arm joints. Use your next exhale to release down. As your fingertips come to the ground, push off with your left foot, step it forward. You might need a few steps to find your feet underneath you. And as you find your feet parallel, about a fist width apart, lift your toes. Grow up through your legs, lifting your kneecaps, lifting your sits bones on the back side. So we're coming into standing yoga mudra. Let your head release down and your arms draw towards each other as you interlace your fingers. Because we tend to be creatures of habit, it's likely that you've interlaced your fingers the same way as last round. So slide all of your fingers over one so your other thumb is on top. That might not make a noticeable change, but it just helps us change habits and create more symmetry in the body. With the arms, it's a combination of drawing your arms inwards towards each other and lifting upwards. So it might be that your palms meet, your wrists meet, and it might not. Find where you're able to lengthen the arms, draw them towards each other, and lift them away from your back, and still breathe. So if it's not breathable, you're too far. Adjust back. And this one tends to feel like you have your arms tied behind your back, so find where you can breathe into that sense of constriction. And the logic of lengthening the front of the thighs is that helps to lengthen the back of the thighs. But if you've had any injury in the low back or hamstrings, or if you have fear there, you're not able to really breathe into where you are, then try bending your knees a little bit and just finding as much length as you can. You may also need to engage your belly to support your low back more. Give it one more breath, inhaling up through your legs, exhaling down through your spine, letting your head release. And then release your way out of this posture into your high lunge on the left. So bringing your hands down and back by your ankles, your right foot back towards the back edge of the mat, taking up a lot of space on the mat. And when you find that length and the distance left to right where you're stable, then grow into the posture. This is a lunge, so thinking of lunging forward, having the lift and the energy from your back heel to the top of your head. So there's less weight in the hands, and that way when we add in the wings, you're not putting a lot of pressure on your shoulders and your hands. So bringing your left hand down, left upper arm in line with your lower leg, then lift your left toes and press your knee into your arm and push back with your arm so you have a strong alliance to open away from. Bring your right hand to your right ribs and find your breath there. Expand your ribs out into your hand and use your inhale to open your ribs up. Notice that the left knee is following. If the left arch is collapsing, then it's likely the knee is following. So if you tend to have low arches, press the outer edge of the left foot into the ground. When you find the lift, the distance between your hands, and the space in your shoulders and your neck, then find the distance from your back heel, stretching towards the back edge of the mat, to your front knee and the top of your head stretching forward. So a really long line in your body from one end of the mat to the other. Take your gaze where you feel balanced and your neck is open. So you might not look up, you might look down to clear your neck. Use your next exhale to release your right hand down. You might need to be on your fingertips to make this transition. Step your left foot back so it's in line with your right foot towards the back edge of the mat, and look back and see that you have your mountain stance in your feet, even though your heels are off the ground. So your toes line up, about a fist width apart. And then look at your hands and see that the base of your fingers are planted. Your fingers are spread out, wrists are broad shoulder width apart. From your hands, we're going to grow from there. So bend your knees and then push the ground away with the base of your fingers so your arms lengthen, and move your underarms back towards your feet. Bend your knees deeply and lift your heels high, and then tilt your tailbone up away from your hands so you feel a long line from each hand to each hip. Keeping your knees bent, but tilting your tail up. That may be tricky initially, how to keep your knees bent and lift your heels and tail all at the same time. So notice how when you lift your heels up and bend your knees, that brings your thighs closer to your belly. Use your hands pushing the ground away to bring your belly and thighs closer together. But then notice if your shoulders disintegrate off your back. So refirm your shoulders, give your neck lots of space, and use your next exhale to release your knees down, uncurl your toes, walk your hands back underneath your shoulders for cat and cow, spinal flex from table pose. So planting your wrists broad, shoulder width apart, fingers spread out, push the ground away and arch your back up towards the sky in cat pose, pressing your shins open, letting your head and tail release down and rolling from your tailbone up your spine in a wave-like motion for cow. And when your head lifts, slide your shoulder blades back and then continue with your pace of breathing, using the energy of pushing the ground away to press the air out. And you can amplify that by drawing your belly into your low back, which helps fan open the low back. Noticing on the inhale if your shoulders tend to strangle you. So drawing them down onto your back, giving your neck some space. If you have trouble doing that, your hands may be too far forward or too close together. So this next time that you inhale, plant the palms down, and then curl your right toes under behind you on the mat or on the ground, and take your right knee off the ground. So you're stretching your right leg long to open the calf muscle. Reach your heel behind your toes. If you want to take this stretch deeper, you can lift your other knee up off the ground. Plant the base of your fingers down onto the ground and your shoulders down onto your back. And finding a line of energy, of intent from your head to your back heel until you feel that stretch in your calf that you can breathe into. So giving that one more breath. Use your exhale to release and switch sides. And finding where your heel is in relation to the toes on that left foot. So if you take your heel towards the big toe side of the foot, what does that affect in your calf? And if you take your heel towards the little toe side, does that feel any different? And if you want to deepen it, you can lift your other knee, make it sort of a half down dog, but check that your shoulders stay on your back and the base of your fingers stay on the ground. And give that calf one more breath. And as you exhale, release your knees and come into toe sit. Curl your toes under, getting your little toes curled under. And as you come up onto your knees or sit back onto your heels if your toes are open, then bring your hands alongside your ribs into chicken. Backs of your hands alongside your upper ribs and elbows forward a bit so you feel the backs of your wrists opening. To amplify that, breathe into your hands. Breathe your rib cage out sideways as you inhale. And then if you want to increase the stretch even more, exhale, and as your rib cage releases back to center, drop your elbows down and shoulders down so you can create a deeper stretch. One more focused breath into the back of your wrists. And now we'll open the underside of the wrist. So bring your hands out. Hold on to the right hand with the left, catching your fingers and your thumb. Relax that elbow next to your ribs so you're focusing on the wrist. And draw the fingers and the thumb back. Think of breathing into the wrist. Switch over to the other side, keeping your ocean-sounding breath flowing. The next time that you exhale, release. You may want to shake your hands out if that feels good. And then release your way forward, keeping your knees together. Uncurl your toes, press the front of your feet down into the ground, and bring your hands a little bit wider than normal for hip circles. So keeping the inner legs together as you take your hips in wide circles, and feel free to shift your hands to where they need to be to help support you in that. Inhale and exhale each circle that you make, getting a sense of your outer hips. The next time that you inhale, change the direction, focusing particularly on taking your hips out towards the sides, but also going back towards your feet and forward towards your hands. Notice if it feels any different on this side in this direction. And then bring your hips back above your knees, keeping your legs together. Walk your hands back underneath your shoulders. We're going to come into cat presses to strengthen the upper back, chest, and arms. So bringing your wrists under broad shoulders, spread your fingers out, plant the base of your fingers, so you may have to lift your wrists to get that connection, and then bring them back down if you did. And then bend your elbows just slightly and tuck them in so that the points of your elbows point towards your thighs instead of off the sides of the mat. Bring your shoulder blades onto your back if they're not already. Lift your belly up into your low back. You can feel your tailbone pointing away from your head, and your low back is long and supported. So as you exhale, bend your elbows to roll across the front of your knees and come forward as though you're going to dive off the front edge of the mat, just coming to the point where you can feel your low back doesn't sag, your shoulders are broad, your elbows are tucked in, and then inhale and come back up. Use your inhale to inflate you, and then your exhale to come forward to get closer to the ground. You're coming down, but not between the hands. It's more about coming forward over your hands, keeping the elbows tucked in so you can feel your upper arms right next to your upper ribs, moving at your pace of breathing. But again, like with the seat of Isis balancing, the slower you go with this, the more strength you're developing in the muscles of your body, and you're also increasing your ability in your breathing practice, your pranayama. Keeping your jaw relaxed. It doesn't matter how far you go. What matters is that you go to the point where you're strongest, where you have integrity. Everything's integrated together. Otherwise, if you're going past that, then you're strengthening in your falling apart place. So focus on strengthening where you're strong instead. This next time that you get to your lowest place, hold. Hold the posture and refine it, but don't hold your breath. So coming forward and down by bending your elbows as though you're leaving your hips behind. Aim your tailbone back, lift your belly up, shoulders on your back, elbows tucked in, breathing steadily. Use your next inhale to come up. And as you lift up, release your feet, keep your hips above your knees, and walk your hands out in front. So we're going to come into puppy dog stretch and open out the triceps and the shoulders. Most likely your hands are going to come off the front edge of the mat, walking your arms out long in front. This is essentially the upper body portion of down dog with the knees on the ground. So you might need a little bit more space between your knees, so you feel your knees are right under your front hips, about fist width apart. Pressing your shins down so you have a good base. Keep your hips right above your knees or shift back just slightly if that's too much on your kneecaps. And then as you walk your arms out long in front of you, bring your forehead to rest on the ground. When you find where you can rest your forehead on the ground, so it might mean that you have to shift your hips back. If your forehead is really far from the ground, it might be that your shoulders are quite tight. But when you adjust and find where you can rest your forehead on the ground, if your elbows have dropped to the ground, push the ground away with your hands, lengthen your elbows, and feel or imagine long lines from the palm of each hand, through each arm, through the side waist, right to the sits bones. It's really easy here for the belly to drop down, the low back to sag. So keep that little lift in your belly that you had in the cat presses. So your tail is pointing back away from your head. And instead of sagging your low back, drop your chest and your throat and your underarms down towards the ground until you feel the backs of your shoulders, tops of your shoulders stretching. And you can breathe. So it may be that your elbows get closer to the ground, but it's not because they're bending. It's because your shoulders are opening. If you're flexible here and you have your elbows long but they're close to the ground and you want to deepen the stretch, lift your head. Use your next exhale to push the ground away with your hands. Walk your hips all the way back over your heels so you're coming into extended child. Find where your long arms help you tuck in and your hips are back over your heels and your forehead is resting on the ground again. So if that's not easy in this posture, you might need to walk your knees wider. Find where you're grounded, you're released down, hips over your heels, head on the ground. And then coming into Yoga Mudra here. Yoga Mudra means the symbol of yoga. Of all the postures that could be called the symbol of yoga, this is the one, because we elevate the heart above the head and we open the space around the heart. Bring your arms around behind your back, interlace your fingers, draw your arms towards each other and up away from your back, keeping your hips on your heels and your head on the ground. So you're just moving your arms, feeling the muscles of your upper back draw the shoulder blades in towards the spine. And if you're really flexible and you find that you lift up fairly easily here, reach up with your hands so that your shoulder blades don't slice down into your neck and you keep lots of space in your neck. So you're opening the chest in front by engaging the upper back. This next time that you exhale, release your arms back towards your back, but keep your hands interlaced. Just change the lacing so that you bring your other thumb on top, sliding all of your fingers over one. And then with your next inhale, bring your arms up again. When you find the highest lift that you can breathe into, your neck is clear, take your arms over to one side so that you can feel the opposite shoulder opening. And see if you can connect, locate your breath in that open shoulder. Keeping your head centered so you're moving your shoulders on either side of your spine. Opening the upper chest and back. Use your next exhale to switch over to the other side. Taking your arms over, still drawing them towards each other and up away from your back, but moving them to the point where you feel that opposite shoulder opening and bringing your breath right up there into your shoulder. Use your next inhale to come back to center, and as you exhale, release your arms, unlace your fingers, and bring your hands to hold onto the heels of your feet. Keep your head on the ground, your hips on your heels for the moment. We're coming into rabbit pose. So if this is new to you, lift up and look so you know where we're headed. If your knees were wide for Yoga Mudra, realign them with your front hips. Get a firm, cupped grip on the heels of your feet, and then tuck your forehead in towards your knees and lift your butt up into the air. Keep hold of the heels of your feet, press your feet and shins down, and lift your butt high enough that your arms lengthen so the bend comes out of your elbows, and you create a stretch across the upper back. You may have to adjust where your head is so that you're on the top of your head, not your forehead, but the very top of the head to keep the neck safe. If you have any neck concerns, you can do the upright version of this instead. So the engagement in the upper back that we just did in Yoga Mudra, you're now stretching open in Sarsangasana, rabbit pose. To keep from putting all of your weight into your head or doing a forward roll, press your shins down and lift your belly up into your low back. And make sure you're on the very top of your head that points up at the sky when you're standing, where your halo would be. And then breathing into your upper back, finding where you can breathe into this little tucked posture. It's like a rabbit diving down into its burrow. Next time that you exhale, release your hips down, let go of your feet, and rest here in child's pose. See if you can let your head follow as you uncurl from your pelvis up to sitting. Then come up into table pose and set your hands ahead of your shoulders instead of directly underneath. Stretch your fingers out wide from each other, bringing your wrists broad shoulder width apart, and the crease of your wrist parallel to the front edge of the mat, so your middle fingers are roughly pointing forward. Lift your wrists to open the fingers where they connect to the palms, and take a breath there. And then plant that area firmly into the ground, where your fingers connect to your palms. Curl your toes under. Push the ground away with the base of your fingers. Keep your knees bent as you lift your hips up and away from your hands, so you're tilting your tail up towards the sky. Very similar to what we did in puppy dog stretch last round, but bringing your knees up off the ground. Firm the base of your fingers into the ground like a root system in your hands, and then from that, grow up long through your outer arms, through your elbows, your triceps, and then up into your waist. But keep your shoulders broad and your ears between your arms so you don't lose your head. And keep all that space around your neck. Since you're looking back at your feet, look to see where your feet are, that they're lined up with each other, and that your knees are still bent. Lift your heels up without taking the bend out of your knees, so you're right up on the balls of your feet, stretching your toes open. With that lift of your heels, you might be able to tilt your tailbone up a little bit higher towards the sky, so you get the curve in the low back. You can feel the front hips folding into the flesh of the thighs, the belly, the chest, the ribs moving closer to the thighs. Now from all of that height, from the lift of your hips, start to stretch your heels down slowly away from your sits bones, but just go to the point where you don't disturb what's going on in the low back and the shoulders. So move slowly. Stay tuned in and breathe. When you get to the farthest point where you can feel a stretch in the backs of your legs, but you haven't dropped your tail or rounded your low back, take another breath there and use your next exhale to release your knees, uncurl your toes, and press back into child pose. You can either keep your arms long in front or you can wrap them around. Find what feels grounding for you. So it might even be helpful for you to take your knees a little wider. Focusing your breath into your low back, into your belly, noticing how you feel. Slowing your breath down if you need to, if it got excited from holding yourself off the ground. We're going to play a couple more times with that same posture. If your arms are wrapped around you, stretch them out in front again, finding where your hands are spread out. Use your next inhale to come up, checking that your wrists are in line with broad shoulders, but a little bit ahead of your shoulders. Base of your fingers are planted and spread out on the ground. Shoulders are on your back. Curl your toes under and come back up into your modified down dog. And because you just spent some time in it, you might be able to find it a little bit quicker. So push the ground away with the base of your fingers, keep your shoulders on your back and your knees bent as you lift your hips up towards the sky and tilt your tailbone up. Move your front hip bones towards your thighs. And from that height, now start to stretch your heels a little deeper towards the ground, paying lots of attention to the low back, keeping the breath flowing through. The next time that you exhale, shift your weight forward, bringing your shoulders over the palms of your hands into push-up position or plank. Bring your heels over the balls of your feet, so you may have to make more distance between your hands and your feet. Depends on your body and where you started. Find the lift of your low belly to aim your tailbone back towards your heels, to find the length of your low back. Feel the lift through the belly, but also through the thighs, the quadriceps, lifting the thigh bones up so that you don't sway in the middle. It's a plank, not a sway bridge. It's important for the safety of the back that you feel a long line from your head to your heels. If even with a strong core you feel low back strain, do the knee down version instead. You'll still strengthen there. Start where you're strongest. Broad chest, broad shoulders. Keep the distance now between your hands and your feet. Use your exhale to transition back to modified down dog. So plant the base of your fingers, bend your knees, tilt your tail up, move your belly and your chest back. So you're starting with that puppy dog approach to focus opening into the shoulders. And then from the height of the hips, tail tilted up, start to stretch your heels down. In this down dog, you might find you have more distance between your hands and feet than you did on the first one. So just see what that feels like. Work with that. Feeling still the lift of the belly underneath that you had in plank to lift the pelvis up, and the engagement of the thighs that you had to draw the thigh bones back so the shoulders don't take all the weight. The next time that you exhale, release your knees back down to the ground, coming into child pose again. Press the ground away, reconnecting to the earth. Allowing your head to rest, your hips to drop down, your breath to slow down. Once you've found that, your breath is slowed down and you've integrated some of the energy of that posture, that semi-inversion of down dog, then release yourself forward and long onto the mat. Coming onto your back for Shavasana, corpse pose. Finding where your long lines are. Stretch the heels of your feet away from your head. And then let your feet release away from each other. Stretch the fingers of your hands away from you, turning your palms to face upwards so that your shoulder blades slide broadly under your back so you don't feel cramped in the upper back. And then if you need to adjust for the curves of your back, your low back and your neck, shift or shimmy your bum down or out to the sides until you feel release in your low back. Adjust your chin so that the back of your neck has a curve that feels easy and spacious. Tuck your chin down slightly if it's pointing up at the sky, or lift your chin slightly if it's jammed down into your throat. Let your eyes close, and when you close your eyes, notice if they're still moving, following all of the activity in your mind or in your body. Imagine looking down gently, without strain in the muscles of the eyes, looking down towards your belly, as though you could see through your body and you could see the breath rising and falling in the belly. And letting that happen without trying to do the breath. Releasing the action of the breath, and then also releasing the actions of the body. A lot of this level of practice has been about lifting up off the ground, practicing levels of levitation. So now release into the ground. Allow yourself the balance of time and space to integrate, absorb. So entrusting the weight of your body to the ground. And noticing in the first few moments of releasing, as the muscles stop firing and the body starts to settle, to soften, you might find you need to adjust, to shift something. So you feel the same level of space in the back body that you can then release more deeply into. But once you've adjusted, commit to a good enough posture. Commit to being still, taking on the name of this posture, the dead body, as an opportunity to let die, to let go of what isn't needed, and to explore what it feels like to be as still as a dead body. And yet noticing within that, within the lack of movement, within the stillness, there is still the movement of the breath. Letting it happen so you're not doing the breath. You may even be able to sense the movement of your heart, your blood, and the movement of the mind and the emotions may become much more apparent in the stillness. So if you notice that your mind is busy, fixated, wrapped tightly around a bone of thought, guide the power of your mind into the rhythm of your breath as it's happening. Be willing to let go. If your attention has shifted out of your body, out of your breath, come back. Reconnect with your breath and your body, using your breath as a bridge between your mind and your body. Let your body stay relaxed and still, and yet notice when you actively breathe again, you start to draw the breath in more dynamically, how that affects the body from the inside out. The level of expansion from center outwards and downwards and upwards. How much space, multidimensionally, can you create in your torso, from your pelvic floor all the way up to your neck with the inhale? Letting go fully and completely with the exhale. Sensing from this connection to your breath and to your center how it is you might like to transition. So it might feel good to breathe down into your legs and arms and move or wiggle your hands and feet. It might feel good to stretch your arms up above your head and reach your fingers away from your toes as though you're being drawn longer. It might feel good to draw your knees in and hug them in to open your low back, or you might want to do all of that. So feeling how and what you want to move, letting your head and neck follow more than lead, let your breath lead. Taking your time to transition to sitting up tall. Come into an easy sitting posture, cross-legged or kneeling. Using any props that help you so that you're not distracted by your seat, and we can focus in these last few moments in opening some space in the neck and shoulders. So once you have your seat, you have the natural curves of your spine, top of your head lifting up. Reach your fingertips down towards the ground. If you touch the ground on either side of your hips, feel that you're not dropping weight into your hands. Create an even connection left to right, and just reach down, touching lightly, if at all. Then the next time that you inhale, draw your breath up from the ground along your spine, and when you reach the top, exhale and release your head to the right and focus into the open left side of your neck. Adjust your head so you can breathe into the stretch. Following the same visualization of inhaling from the pelvic floor into the belly and into the low back and into the ribs, from the lowest ribs all the way up to the collarbones, and then at the fullest part of the inhale, feeling the stretch in the left side of your neck, from your shoulder to your ear, and feeling that your hands are still even towards the ground so that your shoulders haven't followed you and your waists haven't shrunk. If you want to intensify this stretch, you can turn your palms up and tuck your elbows in towards your ribs so you look like Lady Justice with the scales. If that creates too much strain, you tighten your jaw or you stop breathing, just go back to long arms, using the breath to create the stretch, to create the change. And adjusting, if it's too intense to have your ear dropping, turn your nose or your chin towards your shoulder, and that may soften it a little bit. With your next exhale, release your chin down along the center of your collarbones and bring your hands to your knees or your legs and arch back through your spine, holding tight with your hands and tucking your belly in so you create a stretch across your back. Let your head drop down, and it might feel good to roll your chin along your collarbones to open the back of your neck. Use your next inhale to uncurl your spine from the bottom upwards, letting your head follow. Stretch your fingers back towards the ground on either side of your hips, broadening your shoulders onto your back, and release your head to the left. If you can, close your eyes and use your mind's eye to visualize the breath in the body, to see how the inhale creates space from the seat upwards towards the neck, and the exhale allows that stretch between your shoulder and your ear to deepen. It gives you an opportunity to let go of whatever's held tight in the open side of your neck. If you want to deepen that, turn your palms up and maybe tuck your elbows in. Just check it to be sure you can still breathe into it. Feel free to change the angle of your head if it's too intense. The next time that you exhale, let your head roll down along your collarbones. Bring your hands to your knees or your legs, arch back through your back, and hold that curve for a breath or two as you tuck your belly in. Let your head release. Find a big curve from your tailbone to your skull, and your breath running along that curve of your spine. Use your next inhale to draw up tall, and as you lift your spine up, lift your arms out and up overhead. Gather up whatever sort of energy, quality, superpower you'd like to take with you off the mat into the rest of your day or your life. And then bring your palms together down along the center of your body, acknowledging yourself, your practice, acknowledging anyone else who's practicing with you. Namaste. Thank you for being present.